Okay, I'll call to order the committee of the whole meeting of March 6th, 2024 at 4:31 p.m. I'll need a motion that the March 6th, 2024 committee of the whole agenda be adopted. Unless there is any additions or deletions, there are none. Motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Lee, Councillor Flynn seconds. All those in favor? Okay. Then we'll move on to 4.1, adoption of the committee of the whole meeting minutes. And that the February 27th, 2024 committee of the whole meeting minutes be adopted as presented. Councillor McNary, Councillor Weeb seconds. All those in favor? And then we'll go to 5.1, discussion regarding the 2024-2028 financial reports plan, which I guess is a discussion with presentation.
Correct.
The floor is yours.
Thank you through the chair. So, excuse me, it's much shorter than the last one that we did. It's like a quarter of it. So hopefully fairly quick. Some of it's just a recap of the previous meeting last week. So we've taken 2023's actual dollars, reversed the projects from that. That came out to the 2023 operating actuals, added inflation. Those are relatively unavoidable increases in cost, increases in fuel, increases in staff wages as effective agreements, things such as that. The service level changes are those mostly bringing the district up to full staffing levels, which assumes correlated that we're able to offer more services to the residents at the same time having full staffing levels. So the changes in staffing levels compared to the actual staffing levels of 2023 to 2024 is an 8.37 increase in FTEs or full-time equivalent. However, it's actually the only new positions that we're talking about this year is the proposed full-time deputy fire chief and the proposed part-time emergency management book. The other changes in FTEs are to bring the positions to a full year's worth of wages, as opposed to some of the positions such as the corporate officer last year were only a partial year wages. The rest was done by contractors. So this is bringing it up to a full year for all of those. There's a number of projects that were started last year or were included as part of last year's budget that haven't been able to be started or have not been completed that are part of the carry forward budget for 2024, about $2.3 million worth of projects, because those projects already had a funding source in place. They're not contributing to any tax or utility fee increase this year. The funding was already in place for them last year. So this is really the new projects this year. They're a little separated here because the ones at the top are those that we can't really even consider getting rid of. We've already spent the money. The associate member insurance that council approved as part of contracts, fire smart activities, we have grant funding in place that council approved, the PLC replacement council approved. I believe it was in January. So those are I'm considering pre-approved as part of the budget. So what we're talking in detail for projects is those at the bottom. Crack seal program, wastewater treatment plant program, roadworks, hydrant replacement, fleet replacement, water treatment plant, sidewalk replacement, water distribution project, sewer collection project. Treadmills is scratched off. Council decided on that last night. Auto scrubber for the rec center, mower with a snowplow attachment, outdoor power for the rec center, and then council's request for Conway Park playground upgrades and trash bin replacements. So a total of about $1.1 million worth of new projects. As mentioned, at the last council meeting or committee of the whole meeting, sorry, in order to, the district has to have a balanced budget. We can't budget for a deficit. We have three funds. We have a general fund, water fund, and a sewer fund. We can't budget for a deficit in any of those. So in order to balance the budget this year, as part of the draft budget, I included last year's accumulated surplus that was over and above what we had budgeted for. So we budgeted for an accumulated surplus of $368,000. That again is split between general water and sewer. We actually had a surplus of approximately 700 something. So using the additional surplus to balance the budget this year. That's not the only option, as I mentioned to council at the last meeting. It was just sort of the solution that I worked into the budget. Again, not the only option. Other options are reducing reserve funding, using perhaps our stabilization reserve to try and stabilize the tax rates. So there are a few different options that are available to council, not just this. So the way the draft budget fits, as was presented to council at the previous committee of the whole meeting, is a surplus of $396,721. That again, split between the three funds, is $93,000 for general, $60,000 for water, and about $242,000 for sewer. In the 5-year financial plan, as I mentioned, if we were to utilize last year's accumulated surplus, that has to be made up next year. It's not a continual thing that we can keep doing, otherwise we'll have no surplus remaining, obviously. So potentially, the way it's laid out right now, council could potentially be looking at a 26.6% increase in taxes next year by utilizing the accumulated surplus. Again, you have to make it up next year. To make it just a little easier to understand where that's coming from. So this slide shows the $396,000 surplus that's part of the draft budget right now. If we reverse that accumulated surplus funding of $494,000, that brings our surplus down to an actual deficit of $97,230, made up of a deficit in the general fund of $275,000. The water and sewer fund do have surpluses, small surpluses, $60,700 for water and $117,000 for sewer. So the sort of the bottom portion of this chart is, should council want to go a different direction than utilizing accumulated surplus, this is showing what has to be made up in order to balance the budget. So where it's in red, we have to make up that money somehow. And of course, that moves forward over the years. If we have less of an increase, then next year is less of an increase as well because it's cumulative. As I said, very short presentation tonight. I know that Councillor DeBruin was, oh, sorry, shouldn't talk and try and do this at the same time. It's like truly dumb. Councillor DeBruin was planning to have council actually discuss the components of the budget. We're happy to do that with you, or I'm happy to answer any questions that you have on specifically the projects tonight.
Questions for staff?
I was just looking in here, they got $25,000 budgeted for the fire hydrant. Another general reserve. Is there any other money for the fire hydrant?
Through the chair, we do have other reserve funds that are available that could be used. Of course, it just means we have less in the future. If we use more this year, we have less in the future to use.
Do you know if this $25,000 that we got done here is enough to do the fire hydrants that we need to do this year?
Through the chair, the full scope of the repairs of the fire hydrants is unknown. We know the ones that they're out because they got a bag over it. If we have 1 year, if we get those 5 done, that'll greatly reduce the risk of fire protection.
Yes.
And then with our further inspection, when we do a class A inspection, we break down the fire hydrants, we'll know how the conditions. The budget that I put in for $25,000 each is very healthy. I suspect that when we do the inspections of the ones that are in place, they're probably not going to be that bad. So this is the worst case scenario. So after the first year, we'll do the inspections for the rest of the fire hydrants. And I'm assuming that we probably won't need as much going on in the future. So first year, we reduced all the risk. And the second year, we're just gambling on risk that we don't know yet.
So this $25,000 will replace
Replace
and install,
$5,000 per fire hydrant.
and that's.
Replace, install,
on.
new, install.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, looking at the proposal here, why on the 5th year you're asking for 75,000? Like, so we're doing 25. Why did we leave the bigger portion?
I use it over a period of 10 years, so there's no 6, 7, 8, 9 year.
Okay.
So that's between 5, total between year 5 and 10 years.
Have any of the hydrants been replaced recently? I thought council last year, did we not approve a couple of hydrants to be purchased?
They were in the process, they did replace a couple
Okay.
over the past couple of years. They repaired and replaced a couple.
Okay, yeah.
Like, I don't know the
that
number, it's like under
Okay.
3.
But just to understand, so you have a $25,000 budget for this year, which you characterize as healthy. And to Councillor McNary's point, it will replace likely all the ones that are out.
Yes.
But we still have 25,000 budgeted for next year and the year after and the year after and the year after. Are we expecting fire hydrants to be dropping in budgets?
We have to do our inspection, a more thorough inspection of the other fire hydrants.
Right,
I suspect they're fine. And we won't need to replace them.
right. So the 25,000 budget for 25, 26, 27 is just
Very, very healthy. That we
Superficial.
okay. So but there's no grounds for it. You
no,
haven't done any inspections and that sort of stuff.
correct.
In that regard, I would like to direct staff to remove such a budget if there is no grounds for it until an inspection is done, which is hopefully part of the 25,000,
Yes,
right? Okay.
that's part of the maintenance.
And then if out of that inspection comes that we need to replace,
Perfectly fine.
right? Okay. Because, I mean, for me, this budget from 24 to 28 needs to have some basis, right? We can't just copy 24 to 25 to 26. And because it'll impact how much we're gonna have to raise taxes in order to build up our reserve to replace these assets.
And just for clarification through the chair, the future years projects are not included in the budget. Only 2024 is included in the budget at this time, just to show council what this year looks like. We focus on this year. Council looks at the projects in detail every year.
I appreciate that, but the budget that's being presented shows a severe depletion of our reserves over the 4 or 5 years that are being projected from 2024 to 28. At the end, in 2028, we're carrying $10 million in debt. And our reserves are depleted. So I want to have some sort of sense that this budget that's being presented, including the capital projects, is where we're heading. Because if that's where we're heading, we're gonna have to do some more corrective action, then these numbers are very soft. And that's where, hence my question about the fire hydrants, if that number is just being repeated just because it was easy, then I would prefer to take them out so that we can get, and maybe that's also then a review of all the remaining projects, see how true are they? Are we just picking up numbers, or are we fairly confident based on our asset management that we're going to be spending, I forget what the total number is, but $8 million or no, $18 million from that over the next 4 years or 5 years to replace these assets.
If I could, again, through the chair, as I did explain at the committee of the whole meeting, our asset management is still in the baby stage. So relying on our asset management data right now to know, this year we have to replace this, next year we have to replace that. We are not at that point yet. We have to refine particularly the useful lives, as I use the backhoe for an example with council. It was an easy one to understand. They still have to be refined. At this point in time, we need to be relying more on the professional judgment of the department heads than our asset management details.
Okay, so I guess my question, I'll rephrase it then. Is this your professional judgment that is in this plan from 2024 through 2028, including $25,000 for hydrants every year and all these other, including $10 million for a water treatment plant in 2028?
Yes, because over the years, like the condition is what is that this year? So next year is going to be a little bit less. The next year is going to be less. So as all the hydrants are 40 years old, in 5 years, they're going to be 45 years old. So we have to start looking at replacing 5 a year.
That's really.
Through the chair, and I'm not sure who I should direct this at because my brain isn't raining lately, as we all know. I don't understand the bottom of these things where it says annual operating savings. So we're spending $25,000 to save 80. Like, I'm like, hello?
I'm sorry, I should have mentioned something before and I forgot. Please ignore that part. I did not explain properly what it was to be used for. The director of public works thought, if we have a fire hydrant explode and it causes, $20,000 worth of damage. So he was thinking more along worst case scenario risk management. It's actually meant to, for example, the solar panels here saved us on electricity. That's what it's meant to be. So please ignore that part for the most part. And I do apologize, I meant to mention that.
No, that's fine. It was just confusing me.
Yes.
Any further questions about the fire hydrant? Or yeah. Councilor Clark.
Just something that I read when I was going through this lovely package. I may not have understood it properly, but it was mentioned here that technically a fire hydrant comes under small tools and equipment. So if one had broken down, that would not necessarily have to come through council to purchase a new one, correct?
It depends. Once we hit $5,000, then it becomes a capital asset. So if a new fire hydrant in the ground, so whatever parts, bolts they need to put it in there, I'm not a fire hydrant girl. If that adds up to $5,000, it's a capital asset. And 99.9% of the time that specifically goes through council as part of this budget process. If we had, and a fire hydrant's probably not the best example, but if we did have one break through the year and it was decided, it's the one right at the fire hall, we need to have that one. We can, as staff, Rob Peter Junior to pay Peter. So we may still have to replace it, even though council didn't specifically direct on it.
Yeah, I just wanted some clarification on that because we ended up with 5 that aren't working and I go, well, if it's a small tool, then when one broke, replace it. Thank you.
And sorry, just to clarify, but it's ultimately up to staff to decide which ones get replaced, and as long as it's within the budget of 25,000, council no longer contemplate or consulted in that matter, right?
For the most part, except in this case where council has specifically directed that those ones that haven't been working for the last, how many years, those are first.
But typically, correct.
Yes.
Yes.
That's fine, yeah.
Thanks, sir. Okay.
I was just wondering, what's the time frame for replacing these? Are they all gonna be done before June or?
We'll have to schedule with our foreman, but we'll probably purchase them pretty quickly. Well, June's coming up. I'll have to think about it, but this summer
Because
definitely.
summertime, like we need them in the summer. That's it.
The-
Putting them in January.
For the fire hydrant that's out, there is fire protection for those houses beside that fire hydrant. If there wasn't fire protection, we would have alerted the alarm a lot sooner. So there's other fire hydrants. The fire department knows the fire hydrant's out. They know of the other fire, made a contingency plan to protect those assets from those other fire hydrants.
Okay.
So aesthetically, these hydrants need to be replaced. It's better for the protection of the house, but there is protection on the house.
It's just not as good as it could be.
It's not as good as it could be.
Great, thank you. Okay. Any other questions for staff on the presentation that we've seen? Councilor Blunt.
I was just gonna say, could I make a suggestion that we just go through the proposals, one all the way through instead of jumping from one to another?
Sure. Is there a list of proposals?
Yes,
Sure.
it's in your package there.
No, there's.
It's the same that was in
It says roadworks on the first page.
Challenge down.
Happy to start at the top. What is the top? Here it is. Roadworks, first one?
Road surface.
Road surface. Right. That one.
Council, let's make sure everybody's on the right page, that I'm gonna ask people, we're on the right page, and then just check for the bump.
The reason for this separate package is that some of, Mr. So got a little verbal diarrhea there in some of the explanations, so they didn't always fit. So I've copy and pasted the entire, description.
So does everyone have that? Or we go, I don't want someone just kind of falling behind. Okay, let's see,
I just gave it to council tonight. I printed it out and gave it to you tonight.
what's on the desktop.
In there.
Okay.
If you're a short one, we'll share the staff one.
Oh, you got, do you want to start and briefly speak of road surfacing so that if there's any questions that you have come up?
Through the chair, for the protection of roads, there's different levels of activities that we do. There's pothole replacement, there's crack sealing, and after that doesn't work, you resurface it. And when it comes to pavement deterioration, it doesn't deteriorate in a linear manner. So 1 year, 1 unit deterioration, 2 years, 2 units of deterioration. The way it typically goes is for the first however bit, you don't really see anything wrong with the pavement. It looks fine. There's little potholes or little cracks. And then all of a sudden it jumps off a cliff and it starts going really, really bad. And that's when you need to resurface. So once the road conditions that once we can't pothole it anymore, once we can't crack seal it anymore, then we need to resurface it. And there's been a number of roads that we could consider resurfacing. We have a list of every road and the treatment associated with each of those portions of the road. And then we measured it between whether it is an arterial road, like a road that's connected, local roads that connect to the arterial road, or local road, which is like a cul-de-sac or leads to a specific house, which has less traffic. So typically you want to get your main arteries first, arterial roads, like Main Street, if it was ours, Main Street be first. And then the roads that lead out like 6th Street, 7th Street, are arterial roads. And then last would be the cul-de-sacs, which might never get done after 70 years. So some of the requests would be Russell Street, Whitney Road, which we started last year. There's Cook Street, there's 6th Street behind the municipal hall. There's Main Street south of the Reynolds towards Conway Park. Looks like it needs a little touching up. But the amount that we get for the resurfacing would be dependent on the amount we get for crack sealing. If we crack seal it first, once we can't crack seal it, we would resurface it. If there's not enough money for resurfacing, then you would just crack seal it.
I believe we put 100,000 away each year for roads already. So is this request an extra 200,000?
This is the
Over.
request.
This is the request? Okay.
Oh, and we'd also match our road resurfacing with the water and sewer that's underneath. So if you're gonna fix the water and sewer underneath, then we would do resurfacing for that road, or to get a higher priority than it would be if we weren't doing the water and sewer.
Just to be clear, the annual budget for road surfacing used to be 100,000.
So we would budget to put 100,000 into the reserve each year.
Right.
This is asking for an additional 100,000 to actually be used each year.
Right.
If it's not used,
So
it would go in the.
this is fully funded out of our reserve, but we're only putting in 100,000. So we're depleting the reserve with 100,000 unless we increase our contribution to reserves. Right. This is getting our roads resurfaced. And the other matter is to fund the reserves that we need to have in order to. And with the 200,000, maybe a difficult question, but, and I know you haven't been here, but is your sense, your professional judgment, that with $200,000, that the general state of the roads on average through our town is going to remain the same, drop off, or improve?
It would maintain a healthy condition.
You call it the healthy condition at this point? Yeah, you're doing.
Yeah.
All right.
See, there's no standard when it comes to condition of the roads. If you look at Main Street, we've all seen Main Street. Highways, if 10's are perfect, just resurfaced it. And 1 to 3 is like you can't drive over it. There's water, there's cracking, it's you need a truck at this point. Highways thinks it's a 7 out of 10. So then you look at the side roads that we have. There's parts of it that are cracking. So we might not resurface the entire road. We might just resurface a 10-meter section of it in certain parts of it. So 10 meters on 6th Street, 20 meters on Russell Street. Like we have to figure a strategy based on our budget.
What did highway say our Main Street was?
Don't ask.
And
There's a portion of it.
10 is the best, and 7.
10 is you just resurface it and you can roll the blade on it.
Right.
And then it starts rutting because of the cars, it starts potholing, it starts cracking.
And 1 is a gravel road.
You can't drive through it. Yeah, a 3 is when it starts like the gravel breaks off, the water's crossing through it. Like you've never seen a 3 in BC yet.
And to spread.
When does highways, what was the number that they will resurface?
It's it's subjective for them. So even though the conditions of 7, because it's an important road for us, they understand that it'll skip the line in terms of when it's available, but not for another 10, 15 years.
Main Street.
Yeah. There's portion of it that needs to be repaired because there's potholes, that'll be repaired. But as for resurfacing the entire road, talking to the representative, yeah, 10, 15 years. And not in the near horizon.
In whiskey and, cat, separate or something.
So
Or grow up.
Thank you.
And I guess I'm still trying to, so when we put, we're gonna take $200,000, or the budget currently contains the withdrawal from the, I guess, general reserve or whatever roads reserve that we have for $200,000. So we'll fix the roads for $200,000. It's great. The contribution to that reserve, do we specifically budget for that, or is there a bigger general number that covers that?
No, we specifically budget 100,000 into the general reserve, the roads reserve, vehicle and equipment reserve, recreation reserve, and then 25,000 into the water and sewer reserves.
Okay, and so the budget contains $100,000 to be put into the reserve and take out $200,000.
That's what's in the budget right now, yes.
Okay, so I would call that a deficit. Maybe not in our operating account, but it does deplete our reserves. That is, so in order to preserve our reserves, we actually need to add another $100,000 of taxpayer money into those reserves in order to be able to sustain our roads as presented.
Correct.
Okay.
Having said that, we have been putting this 100,000 into the reserve for the last number of years. So we do currently have just under 700,000 in that reserve right now.
But that reserve will be depleted. If we're depleting it with $100,000 a year, it will be depleted in 7 years instead of remaining consistent where we actually put money away. And again, in running a business, it's never $200,000 steady every year. It's going to be a big project here because we want to do, entire streets. So it will be more or less depending on the year. And that's why we have to preserve. But ultimately, the reserves need to be, you can't drain the reserves, right? We need to have the reserves in order to have the funds available to replace our assets. I think that's the entire concept between capital asset management, as I understand. And so, like I said, while I appreciate that we're putting 100 in, taking 200 out every year, we'll have no reserve left in 7 years.
You're not getting any argument from staff. I think you're exactly right.
Okay.
The service level of the roads is to the council's pleasure. You can look at the roads, you can see what kind of condition it is. And when you look at the roads, you come up with a judgment and say it needs to be repaired. But if you compare it to other roads in other communities, you can see that our roads aren't that bad. If we want it higher, we can put more money into it. And if we think it's okay, then we can put it off for another year.
There's a couple here that have to be done.
Any further questions about road servicing? Good.
No.
Okay, we'll move on to fire hydrants, which I think we covered. What's that?
Who's covered that?
Okay. Then we'll move on to the fleet replacement program.
Yeah, we have a fleet of vehicles. Some of them are inoperable at the moment. Some are in poor condition, and we need to start replacing them for like. And if we replace 1 or 2 a year for the next 5 years, then we'll have a healthy fleet.
And what's the, sorry, I don't get it out of, what's the budget for the, the budget for the capital replacement for 2024?
140,000 per year.
140,000 per year over the duration of 2024 to 2028. 5 years. Okay, and how much are we putting into the reserve?
100,000. We are spending $750,000 this year, hopefully this year, on the water tender fire truck replacement. Not fire trucks, water tender fire apparatus.
And we have that money?
I'm sorry?
We have that money for a water tender?
Yes.
So currently, there's about $900,000 in the reserve. We're going to be adding
About 166 is budgeted.
Okay.
It's the 100,000 that we put every year from taxation, and then the anticipated interest earnings.
from okay, the investment income.
Yes.
Okay. And that then, so at the there's a $1,069,000 available, and we'll spend $931. So at the end of the year, we have 140 left.
Correct.
And then in subsequent years, we're going to be spending another 140,000. But then the transfer in remains the same at 166,000. The investment income is going to be.
If, quite honestly, I have like this quite complicated spreadsheet that allocates it to the different reserve funds. I did not get specific into, it's anticipated to have this balance. I carried the interest allocation across all the years unless it was down to a zero balance.
And all of our fire trucks are, sorry.
It's your meeting, Rob.
Just raise your hand. Or say something, don't even raise your hand. Anyway, this is committee of the whole, so it's not that formal. But we fund all of our fire trucks through this, right?
Currently, yes, correct. That's where we're supposed to fund it from. If worst came to worst for vehicle and equipment replacement, potentially we could use the general capital reserve as well.
Those fire trucks.
The fire trucks aren't the expensive ones, it's these other ones, they're even more. The fire truck was only 500.
Pickup trucks. Right. Okay, any other, couple of
So back to fleet. So what you're wanting is to replace 2 pickups this year?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
This
Yeah.
is a like-for-like program. So
Yeah.
if we have a truck and it's broken, we're gonna replace it.
Yeah, we're looking at some of these, like we're 2008, 1994, so we do have some very old pickups here. This is gonna sound horrible, but if we do get the new pickups, like some of the pickups, I know there's been comments about they're dirty, they're rusty, they're dented, so they'll be looked after.
Yes.
But yeah, now looking at the list of the years of pickups and everything. So for this year, you're not just asking, but you're wanting 2 new pickups to replace the failing fleet.
We're expecting an average of 10 years per use of fleet, but because we're such a small municipality, we're not driving 45 kilometers, maybe we can get like 12, 13 years out of it, so we can extend it longer than industry average of 10. So that's why some of the vehicles are over 10 years, and it's a little bit okay for the moment.
Which makes sense because they're all pavement driving, they're not bush driving.
the chair. I know it was brought up about gas tax, that we need to spend it or we might lose it, and then we've got our growing communities fund and this, that, and the other. Can any of these projects be funded under any of those rather than taking it from other reserves?
Marshall. So through the chair, I have budgeted to start using those reserves. 300, just about 400,000 from the gas tax this year. And then the growing communities starting next year, $1.3 million from there.
Okay, that sort of answers my question, but can any of these projects that are on here through Public Works be funded under gas tax rather than depleting our reserves?
Some of them can.
But they're not on the sheet that way, right?
No.
Okay. So, okay.
How to say it? Some of our reserves are a lot stricter in what they can be used for. Gas tax is one of them. They have a specific list of eligible criteria that you can use it for. So I try to use those funds for things that specifically fall under that category, rather than using our own reserve funds. So for example, this year, sorry, I can't follow my own lines.
Definitely need a yardstick.
The water distribution project. We're trying to, these appropriated surplus ones don't have really criteria set on them, so we're trying to get rid of those. And focus on our statutory reserve funds or reserve funds set by bylaw. So it's a kind of, I have my list. I'm missing the word I'm looking for.
Well, let's just say that, we're not having to be down with it. So, council approves what reserves get spent. We can, we'll decide that. So if it's your wish to spend money on the federal gas tax, your direction would be to, for CFO, say, could you investigate whether or not we can spend this gas tax money? Then we'll get you back to an answer. It's very hard to explain on the spot for any CFO. So that's the direction. But typically, there's lots of rationale in the legislation about reserves. And it's just correct. You can't just move reserves around. You pass the bylaw saying reserves go A, B, C. There's guidelines with the grant. So it's very hard for a CFO to say, yeah, we can do that tonight. But if that's council's wish the next couple of days, you have to tell us and then we'll bring it back.
Well, I'm just curious on this $750,000 for the water tender fire apparatus. It can come out of somewhere.
No.
Okay. There's my answer.
If it was a specific project, I can answer that. No,
Okay.
it's not eligible under any of the other.
In the end, I mean, whether it comes out of this bank account or that bank account or that bank account, it just comes out of the bank account. And
Well, I get that, but I'm just seeing our reserves depleting. If we don't have to use them, that we can use gas tax money or,
We're gonna lose our gas tax money if we don't use it.
that's right.
So we gotta use it. We gotta figure out how to use it.
That's why I was thinking if we could do that,
And we said,
but we
no,
can't. So come up with something we can, Randy.
no, that's up to you guys.
But is
No, it's
there
not.
any money
Yes.
or any reserves that are at risk of being lost at this point because we're not spending them?
So the gas tax was a concern. I did actually just today receive an email that they've renewed it's an agreement between the province and the feds or whatever. They've renewed it, so we will still continue to get it. But we do have to report to them on what we plan to use it for.
So we need to get what can we use it for so we can make a decision where we want to spend it.
The things that I've specified to fund from there is what we can use it for.
It's rather treatment plan.
That being for the Powell Creek, get the Powell Creek online.
It potentially could be, yes.
So basically water and sewer, or just water?
Gas tax.
Yeah. There, you can do roads, you can do, some recreation, um, I'm not positive on sidewalks. So, and just long story short, if you go to the last page of the big sheet, like, we've used up everything we have. So whether we use gas tax this year and growing community next year, and there's this much money, and we're adding a little bit to it every year, but we're gonna be needing to use way more. So, I mean, I can certainly switch them around so we use, less general and more,
Yeah, you do nice stuff. You do stuff.
yeah.
But if we're using a gas tax and the government's got a thumb on it, we use it all, maybe they'll give us more.
Which is why I'm trying to use that one a little faster than
Okay.
some of the others.
So it's in the words.
It is.
Okay.
I could use it quicker than 2028.
Fine. Okay, any other questions with regard to fleet replacement program?
No, I just had a question in general. Through the chair. So if we approved all of these projects the way you have it lined out, with a 4% tax increase, we still put money into our reserves?
So
Or what's the ratio here? I'm just,
This year, yes, we're still putting money into our reserves. We're not depleting any of our reserves. 4% tax increase. By depleting, I mean, like, going down to zero.
Right.
But we are not keeping our reserves,
Maintain,
thank you.
maintain reserve at a certain level.
I'm having your problem with
so I
words.
know, yeah, it's a brain thing lately.
We can do it, but we're not improving our position at all.
Right. So my mind works better on knowing what the tax increase is. I don't know about anybody else. So what would it have to be in order to do what needs to be done, not necessarily what wants to be done, but what needs to be done?
I'm gonna suggest,
Or is this a
sorry,
different
Chair.
meeting?
No, it's a good question. I'm gonna suggest you continue with the projects.
Okay.
Keep that thread, 'cause that's what it comes down to, right? But you folks need to decide, the projects and level of service. So good questions. I would ask the chair just to keep going through the projects, and then we'll get to that point.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions about the fleet replacement? Or the sidewalk replacement? Before we come back?
Yeah, through the chair, sidewalks are very important. They're important for safety, they're important for accessibility, and they're very visible to our community. We're talking with the foreman, that we can do $15,000 worth of sidewalks, which is about $300 per panel, in a given year, and it wouldn't stress us that much. And then if we do another $15,000 each and every year, it'll be very visible, that the sidewalk program has been changing. If you look at the panels, it should be level. But once it's 2 inches, that's a tricky hazard. And that's when there's issues with public safety. So it's to replace cracked panels and to correct tripping hazards.
Councilor Flynn.
So we're looking at kind of limping through and just patching, or are we going to be lifting sidewalks to make them even? Because I noticed like there's quite a few, especially down Main Street there, where they have been spray painted so that you can see that there is the.
So the grinding of the sidewalks in the chair, the grinding of the sidewalks to make them level, that'd be maintenance. So given this as capital, this would be to rip out, replace, new sidewalk.
Okay, Councilor Mayor.
Is there any way that we can pump road underneath them and lift them?
Through the chair, I've looked at many examples of that, and there's very few people that do that in BC. They recommend that the cheapest option is to rip it out and start again. I have looked at that, and everyone recommends that. That's on YouTube, but yeah.
I can verify that because I have a spot on where my septic tank is, and I looked into that and they told me the exact same thing. Fill it up and
It's
report.
cheaper to build a new one.
Yep.
Mr. David.
Thank you. Mayor. I think I suggest moving forward and talk about linear feet in the future. How many feet is going to get me for 50,000 bucks? Maintenance is maintenance. No, okay. Okay. 5. Okay. Yeah, so how many feet? That's how people kind of measure it. How many feet of sidewalk are we going to get this year?
Yeah, $300 per cubic, $300 per linear meter. So 300 divided by 15,000.
It says here roughly 50 meters per.
So how many meters of sidewalk will we get a
It
year?
says 15,000 annually, roughly 50 meters.
150 feet.
Yeah, they're expensive.
Okay, any other questions with regard to the sidewalk? Remind me which reserve fund this comes from?
This one, I believe I brought in the general capital reserve.
Oh, okay. This point.
The first year is 20 and then it's 15 each year after that.
Right, any other questions with the sidewalk? Councilor Paul?
Okay, so this is for the current sidewalks we have. It's not for doing anything else like from, I don't know what street it is, like towards the hospital, those ones there. So we wouldn't consider, instead of doing sidewalks, doing like blacktop.
Correct, it's like for like replacement.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Again, just for my learnings, when we have developments, we will require downtown, we require sidewalks.
Yep, correct.
I think Manny's, corner building, put in sidewalks and that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
But then ultimately it is our responsibility to maintain roads.
Yeah, they put it in, we take over the ownership of it.
We're not looking to expand necessarily the sidewalks, but they are expanded through new development. Right. Any further? No, we'll go to water treatment plant upgrades.
Distribution. What's that involved?
Sorry, which one?
And water treatment plant upgrades.
It's just a list of items that was identified in their recent condition assessment. We did one in 2017, and we had one recently from 2022. Some of it's to increase or to bring the condition that it was originally designed up to the standard that it's supposed to be designed. So some of it is to clean out the intake of the water treatment plant to prevent further sediment from getting into the water treatment plant. Others is to replace just the motors over a period of time, because it's been 5-7 years, like in 2026. It's to replace the motors over a period of time, which is supposed to be replaced. Others is to add security to the building. Most water treatment plants and systems have alarms, identification of the building to protect it from public and other nefarious organizations. I wrote SCADA down a couple of times, but it's what you approved last time. And the bulk water system is listed in 2024. Right now, it's just a spout in front of the water treatment plant that is not monitored or protected, but it's to create an overhang that's with a concrete pad and a measured, whatever design we want to come up to, automated credit card system to measure the amount of water you take out. That's what I identified in the budget.
But for 2024, we have $150,000 for water distribution That's all these items that you've listed?
Yes.
Sorry, to be clear, there's two separate ones. There's water treatment plant upgrades that he's speaking of. The next one is water distribution.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The water treatment plant creates the water, the distribution distributes the water.
Okay, so what is then budgeted for 2024 into water treatment?
253. What's NL water,
North Lillooet,
CL?
Central Lillooet.
What's the gas reserves on that, what's that?
That's the gas tax.
That's a tax that we get from the water?
So that's the community works gas tax funding that we receive.
Okay.
So it is the water treatment plant that in 2028 need a $10 million upgrade?
That's the distribution.
Sorry.
That's the next one.
Any other questions about water treatment plant? Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Councilor.
So these are just for upgrade, like basic upgrades that we need. It's nothing that's going to give us more water.
This isn't to increase the capacity. This is to continue current capacity.
Current capacity and keeping us, okay.
You answered my question.
No, I just remember when we did our tour there before, we were there and I know absolutely nothing about it. I can picture everything, but there were all of these cells and they said if we got extra cells, then we could have more water. So that's nothing to do with any of that.
Correct.
Yeah.
The,
And that was dummied down. Well, actually, that was smart for me.
those filter cells is the limiting factor in creating more water. So if we had more cells, we can go from 6 megaliters to 10 megaliters. So that's how much water we can create in a day because of those cells.
Just to follow up on that, I think when we were there, one of the main issues was that the water coming into the system was dirty or there was too much turbidity or that sort of stuff, so that cells weren't operating or generating the capacity that they should if the water was cleaner coming in.
Correct. The sediment that's coming within the infall.
Yeah.
We did some work on the infall to prevent some filter coming in, but the more turbidity that's in the water, the more the filters have to work.
Yeah.
And once they're plugged, then they have to be flushed out, and that takes time.
Yeah.
And then if we're flushing them out, then we're not creating water.
But does this help prevent some of the turbidity coming in?
Yes.
So in that sense, the capacity of the water treatment plant goes up because we're now better utilizing its capacity
We will meet the design standard that they were trying to achieve
of 6.
of 6 megaliters a day.
It's just a question. When is going to be the right time to ask you a question about Concord?
It is in the water distribution request portion of the next page.
And 6 million
Megaliters. So 1 liter and then mega is 6 zeros.
That's, so 6 million liters a day.
Yes.
A day, an hour, a day.
Day.
During summer, when do the water restrictions come in? At 6 million?
We don't need a lot 10 months of the year. June, July, August is when the peak demand increases.
Yeah.
And that's when we need the other sources to supplement the creation of the water.
Right. But that's water intake, but ultimately this water treatment creates the output.
Yep.
It only creates, no matter how much we put in, it only creates 6 million going out.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
So, how often, like last year, how many days did we use more than 6 million liters? You know,
I have the graph in my head. I have to pull out from the annual report. But I know that not 9, 10 months of the year, there's no concern about peak demand. It's just 2 o'clock on between July and August is that 2 months that peak demand that they have to use for the other wells to supplement the water. I can show you the graph. I just don't have any.
any other questions with regard to water treatment plant?
Okay, is it working good? It's working good.
Working very well.
We'll move on to water distribution.
I broke up the water distribution into a number of programs. The first one is for about 1.3 million for the increase of the secondary water source for the install, the design, the install, and investigation of Town Creek. So this would be, or whatever secondary source that we decided.
What was the cost of that? What did you say it was?
Is an estimated, a Class D estimate, which is plus minus 100%, 1.3 million.
Do we have any of the materials to make that like a filtration thing already that we have already, or is this all gonna be new? For Town Creek?
It won't need filtration. It just needs chlorination. Because it's groundwater, and the groundwater is the filtration.
Okay, so where's the 1.3 million? Because we used to use it all the time. That's,
It's just a Class D estimate. It hasn't been designed yet. This is what they said in the report. Once the design goes through, they'll sharpen the pencil and get a proper estimate. This is just a
guess.
this is just a guess at the moment.
And this is,
Is there any time frame on that? When does that all happen?
Within the year. Next year.
Next year?
The actual
Oh, the construction of it.
construction.
Okay,
So the first part would be the design. And then we can, once we have the design, we can get a proper estimate. And then the construction would be scheduled for next year. So in the,
so that's in that 1.3 million dollars you're talking
for the
about?
overall for the entire project. The design would be 70,000, 10%. Well, 10% is not 1.70,000. 130.
okay.
Plus minus 10%.
And the design of alternative water source is in the budget. It's in this capital budget.
Correct, yes.
And.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you're speaking about Town Creek, you're talking about industrial park or infiltration well tie-in. Is there, like, remind me?
They're still doing the studies. They haven't decided which secondary source to use yet. We're still in the process of doing the exploratory stage of each site.
And that's Town Creek, that's what we're talking about, right?
Potentially,
Potential.
that is one of the options.
So when is that report due or coming to council, or
Yeah,
is it coming to council, or?
It would become the council. We're expecting another report. It was supposed to be end of January, so it's a couple months late, but it's coming.
can we liven them up a little bit?
I can ask nicely.
A couple times and then it gets snotty after that, right?
Okay.
Okay, Councilor Moore.
I'm just a little confused here when we're talking about industrial park. Do we have water over there? Is there potable water over there, or what is?
There's a well there. The water distribution doesn't extend to industrial park.
So everyone else's problem here. So we would be looking at using that well to bring the water back over to town?
No,
No,
they have to figure out their water on their end, and we have to figure out the water on our end.
Just really curious why they would want to use power out of the wells instead of Town Creek, which is, yeah.
I'll have to read the previous history, why they created that water treatment plant there, but
I'm still confused about the industrial park, how that fits into the secondary water source. I mean, it's either an infiltration well, I mean, it has to be something on this side of the river, right? For it to be an alternative water source. Where are you usually catch up with?
yeah, I need to catch up with it.
Okay, I won't. All right,
We're not using the industrial park as a secondary source for it.
but then we'll look forward to reports that was due in January.
Yeah.
That needs to come in. You can ask all the questions to consultants, I'm sure.
No fault of yours, you just started, but
That's okay.
Right,
still live in somebody else.
okay, so that's the report on the secondary water source. Any other questions with regard to water distribution?
The other particular programs is a request for all the other PRVs to be replaced. They're underground, undersourced, undersized. They need to be replaced at one time or another. So that's why it's there. The backup generators for all the water distribution sites, including water treatment plants, the lift stations, the event of a power outage, we can't create any more water, and we can't put water into the reservoir, and the town doesn't have water. Unless we have Town Creek.
And just, I mean, that's a, for sure a big comment that you make there. But it just means that we don't have any new water to add to the reservoir. We will have water for town until the reservoir runs empty.
Correct.
And there's how many liters in the reservoir?
I have the number, I think it was 4 million altogether. There's a million gallon of all the 4 different reservoirs. Half a day.
Well, I mean, if it's 4 million gallons, that's, my math would bring it to 16 million liters, which would be almost 3 days.
I'll have to do the math,
Okay.
but
But the point is that when the power goes out, we still have water
in the reservoir.
in the reservoir.
Yeah, but we can't produce anymore because those don't power the water
So
treatment.
if we need to open, if we have a fire, with a fire hydrant, or what?
We have to turn on Dickey Creek and
And that's possible to turn them on.
yes,
As long as there's water in the reservoirs, we have water to pipe.
Dickey Creek.
It just wouldn't be potable water. We would be on a water, probably
All
boil
water
water.
advisories.
I just have a problem if we're doing a big study and everything else. And our system's already there, it seems like. I don't understand why it takes so long to get an answer.
It's the requirements that we work with Island Health in making the designs. Here you go. Yeah, sorry, that's where I was before.
Same authority, different name.
Yeah.
I know, it's frustrating, but he's here.
It's already there,
But
He's here now, so
and it's $1.3 million and it's there.
that's what fine.
going back to, you're asking for 150,000 for this year. Am I looking at the right one? Water distribution.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we've talked about 1.3 and everything else. What are we actually looking at for that 150,000? You kind of squirreled all over the place.
Yeah, I think the most important thing on the list is the cross connection program that we need to do. That's a requirement out of our water operating permit that we were told to do this year. Or it would probably be, if we're not doing a PRV because it takes time, then we're not doing the generators because it takes time to do the design. Probably replace 1 or 2 water lines. And that would be associated with road surfacing. So you do the water lines, then you do the road on top of it, and that'll be your 150,000.
But I thought we were spending 150,000 on doing this design. Oh,
So we do some of the design, we do some of the pipe maintenance, which would take up the majority of what we don't do with the design.
Sorry, through the chair, we do still have some budget carried forward from last year for the supplementary water source assessment, which is gonna complete the report. The major work on any secondary water source is probably not gonna happen this year. We're gonna get the report. Council's gonna hopefully determine the preferred source of the two. Next year's when the real work starts.
okay. Now I had my question again. About the $9 million that we're going to spend in 2028 on water distribution.
That would be the addition of all the, if we're doing this asbestos cement lines, the looping of the lines, and the new waterworks for the increased fire flow. So that's to replace all the water lines.
And through the chair, sorry, Cam was doing a 10-year, more of a 10-year financial forecast. So he's kind of grouped the remaining 5 years into this year 5. So as we move closer to year 5, which is 2028, those are gonna spread out over the following years. So it's not necessarily $9 million in 2028.
No, we don't have the capacity to do $9 million in 1 year for water lines. We're 200,000 is quite healthy.
That's just left over.
Yeah.
What we're gonna have to do.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's still $2 million a year. If it's for 5 years, it's $10 million.
Yes.
Then, so
It's actually for 6 years.
the point, I think the point is that while we're looking at a fairly low spend on water distribution in 2024, in 25 with the secondary water source, and then backup power and new works and replacing all the water lines and asbestos cement, whatever. There's a huge amount of capital replacement coming down the line in the next 10 years.
Correct.
And which reserve fund is that going to be coming out of?
So through the chair, it's a combination. I've tried to use the Growing Communities Fund, the gas tax reserve, the water capital reserve, just down the line until it was not left.
Okay. We'll go to another source of the wastewater treatment plant.
Yep, the wastewater treatment plant, we do have a master plan that's a couple years old. It did make some recommendations on the plant. The plant's a little bit older than our water treatment plant in that it needs a little bit more work in terms of protection of safety of the workers and for the production of the cleaner water to meet the new federal and municipal regulations that were created after our plant was developed. This is what we need to meet those regulations.
So all these projects are coming out of the master plan that was developed.
Correct.
roughly about 100,000 in 2024.
46.
46.
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay.
It's a 75 here, isn't it?
46.
And a lot of this is to replace like-for-like equipment that's going to be deteriorating in particular years.
So we're doing a lot of like for now, and then after that, we can start moving on to replacement and upgrading.
Like for like is the replacement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's,
Yes.
we're not increasing the amount of capacity. We're making sure we continue on as designed.
This probably got nothing to do with this, so we can just tell me no and we can go on.
No.
But I'm just wondering, I'm wondering about that ravine that is sloughing down. Is that anything for us for budget? I know it's something to do with CN. Is that going to impact anything going forward? I know it's probably not a budget discussion, but I don't know if that's a money thing that we have to look into here sooner in the future.
Yeah, we're watching it. We'll watch the rate of decline. If it increases, then we'll flag it as a more important issue. But if it's just maintaining, then just leave it in handle that risk.
Okay.
And so we're replacing like for like and that sort of stuff. There's no fundamental issues with the water treatment plant that needs to be resolved. We're going into.
Wastewater.
Same thing. Sewer plant, wastewater treatment plant.
Sorry. That says wastewater treatment. Sorry. But again, my question is, it's working properly. We don't need to fix it.
There's slight upgrades to be more work safe conscious.
Right.
But as a grand change, there's no grand change.
Basically maintenance. Well.
More than maintenance because it's capital, but yes.
Okay, yeah.
We want to keep it
Mhm.
running the way it was designed.
It keeps on being a story that it's not working and we're hauling stuff out of there. Well, it's supposed to not be hauled out and that sort of stuff. But you're telling us it is working as it's supposed to. Yes. Okay. Any other questions with regard to the sewer plant? We'll go to the sewer system collection program.
Yeah, through the chair, this is like the distribution system where water takes from the system. The sewer system brings water from your house to the wastewater treatment plant. There's less information in it that we know of, as there's no cammering program or there's no infiltration program. So what I'm suggesting is that we do an infiltration program to determine the condition of our sewer lines. I suspect that there are cracks in our sewer line, and when it rains through the groundwater is getting into the sewer lines, in which we're processing extra in our wastewater treatment plant. And then with the infiltration design or study, we'll know which target, we prioritize which lines can be replaced first.
So this was your smoke testing that you were talking about previously.
Yep.
And do we not have a camera?
We have a camera that has a limited range, but we need a camera program through that more expensive camera to get the full range of length down the entire line. Like with our camera, we only get,
We have a short tether.
Can we contract this out or do we need to?
we will contract it out.
Okay.
And doing this smoke test and everything else is going to give us the information that we need to know where we are potentially failing and what needs to be fixed or replaced sooner than anywhere else?
It'll give us an idea of the condition of every pipe, and it will determine the amount of rainfall going into the pipe to know what our infiltration is. And then it'll prioritize which lines we should do in order, and then the next 20 years, this will be our plan.
For this, we're developing master. To the cabinet management. Okay, very good. Then we'll go on. I think the next one, there's trash bin upgrades. I don't think that's part of the sewer system. Is that part of the sewer system? Okay, so.
We're done with sewer, done with water. There's just, 2 more from Public Works.
Okay. So trash bin upgrades?
The last.
So basically replacing a bunch of, un-bear-proof or not bear-proof open trash containers on Main Street.
Yeah, really pretty one.
Yeah, the request through council was that to look into bear-proof trash cans. You can have the hideaway trash cans. There's one in front of the Reynolds at the moment, which is the square. You open it up at the back and you take out the garbage, so it's easier for the crew instead of lifting straight up. And in terms of accessibility, because it's lower, it's easier for wheelchair accessible to put the garbage in. And then it's metal, which makes it bear resistant to wildlife. So the cost is $2,000 per can, and at the pleasure of council, we can buy as many as budgeted.
And currently there's $45,000 budgeted. If we're replacing these 20,
They last 15 to 20 years.
we're replacing 20 of these trash cans.
It's as many as council wants to replace.
And we go single doubles, right?
Yeah, the
I'm assuming
2,000 is for the single. So if you want to double, then it's,
You've got
I thought it was
15 for a
1500
single and
2,000
2,000 for a double, including the concrete pad.
that's what I wrote.
Yeah, so I know you would know where a double should go. I wouldn't, because all I see are those little round things out there now.
I would assume doubles would go to sort of in where you have restaurants.
Like I can see it down Conway Park, big doubles, but, I say by the post office or whatever, a single would do there, right?
Well, we'll look at how it's surfacing, and if it needs to be refilled every day, then we put a double there.
Sorry to interrupt. So this 45,000, would that replace all of our non-wildlife resistant garbage cans with what?
I calculated 25 bins that we needed, so that would replace all 25 bins.
Now,
Councilor Platt.
question on the replacement. So the bins that we currently have, the aggregate or whatever there, is it possible to recoup some of the funds to resell them to somewhere else? Or would they be something that we could, which would be a pain probably, but use as planters?
We could repurpose them as planters. But we've discussed auctioning off our surplus. We don't get that much money back from it.
Okay.
But there would be a lot of utility with reusing them as planters.
I think we got enough planters, don't we?
Flowers are awesome.
What's the piece?
Yeah, we need bees.
We're gonna look after them, they just pull on some anyways.
Yeah, but then we can get Parks and Rec to do watering.
So, sorry, so when we do doubles, is that a gray bin and a blue bin, or are we not recycling?
Whatever the design that we choose, a double could be just two wide hideaways. So one could be recycling, one could be garbage, or both could be garbage.
Do we have the capacity or the ability to
Recycle.
have, one of them be recycling?
It would be very difficult.
So they would most likely be two double garbage.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry about that. I know just through chatter of Bridge River, they have to have a different truck to do recyclables. You can't do it with your garbage truck.
Correct.
So that would be another expense for the district because we don't have such, right?
Correct.
Right. Any other questions about $45,000 worth of non-recycling garbage bins? No.
Through the chair, we also don't have to do $45,000 this year. We can do $5,000 this year, $5,000 next year, $5,000. We can spread it out.
I do feel we need to do something here. Because we ask everybody to be there aware and we are not ourselves.
But something is a very vague number. It can be one bin or all bins. But we will park that and I'm sure we'll come back. We move on to Conway Park upgrade.
Conway Park, this was another request at a previous council meeting about the playground at Conway Park. I put a number of recommendation or suggestions into the pricing just because I didn't know what level of playground that the council was willing to budget. Like for like replacement of those swings could be $5,000 per. There's 5 pieces of equipment. That's how I got to $25,000. But we don't have to do like for like. If we want to do a medium-sized equipment, it would be $60,000. If we want to do grand-size equipment, it could be $100,000. So whatever the council desires to budget for the playground, that would be the budget.
I have spoken to a few people about Conway Park and playgrounds and from most of them that I've spoken to, they would prefer like to like down there. Just it's a larger area, there's grass in between, there's all sorts of pickup games in between, but also being so spread out for like, there is the opportunity that other freestanding equipment could be added at different times. And plus the rec center has the beautiful big one that we do have, which is awesome, but it does sometimes cause problems with you've got the king of the castle and nobody else is allowed on the top of the slide or everywhere else there. So I would be fine with like for like.
And that is what is proposed in the budget.
Yes. All right.
Not that it's on the budget there, but we do have a swing set up at Hangman's Park, which I don't know if it could be included or just removed. I don't know how it is used up there, but.
Yeah, I looked at this, to the chair, I looked at this morning. There's no swings on it at the moment. And if we, I told the crew to just take it down, but it's anchored in the concrete, so we'll take the back a little bit out. It's gonna be a like half-day production, taking it out, but take it out.
Right now, we
You
just cut it off.
It would be a tripping hazard, like we can go really low, it'll be a block and then it'll be, it's not super hard. It just takes a long time.
Okay. Then we move on to 4 auto scrubber replacement.
Through the chair, Martin will probably jump into here too, but I'll do my best for the rec center here. The floor scrubber, previous council, we did have to replace the previous one that I think even ran on propane or something like that. The one that we replaced it with, of course, is used every day and is starting to show its age. So they are looking to replace it again nearing the end of its life. It does, having an older machine does increase the workload on staff. It doesn't do the floors and stuff as efficiently or as quickly for them. So there is potential for not cost savings, but that the staff can be doing something else waiting for the float to dry.
Question?
Through the chair, so the old one could still be used, say, as a first line for like, say, the arena when it's not being used there. If it's extra dirty, the old one could be done and then the new one could be used for like the more polishing. It wouldn't be as hard, used as hard for the really dirty stuff. That was, yeah, bad.
So. Sell. Sell it.
Probably couldn't sell it if we're trying to get a new one.
So-
It potentially could certainly be used as kind of a scale.
Any other questions about the auto scrubber? Okay, we'll go to the lawnmower with snow plowing head.
All right, so I'll speak to this one, Mr. Chair. Thank you. While I speak to the rec staff, there's about this, it's quite typical in other communities where I work too. So they want to be able to move snow or get rid of snow and not wait for other works to go. But, you know, they start earlier, whatever. So it's pretty typical for them to want a snowblower on top of a piece of equipment so they can clean it when they can, whether it's early in the day or late at night, and do their own thing. I'm not talking about the whole parking lot, just the entrances, right? And it's also the same piece of equipment will also be a lawn mower. And that typically because Parks Department knows when the ball diamonds of parks need to be cut, not when it fits into the public works schedule. And that's where you get the frustration from the existing staff and other communities where we know when the tournaments are on, they don't. And we want to make sure it's well done, so they want their own lawnmowers. Very typical from other communities too. They want their own lawnmower, they want their own snowboard, and not be waiting for another department to come to either move snow or cut grass. So that's why that's there, and it's very typical in many other communities. Thank you.
Good. Councilor Weed.
Through the chair, I just have the one question about QP.
Oh.
QP, when it's a public works job to snowplow and cut grass, and now the rec center wants to do their own, is that anything to do with negotiated
I think that's-
QP contract where you're taking someone's job away?
Well, I don't think we're taking the job away. It's just another department will have priority in terms of want to cut their grass. You shouldn't have to wait for public works. I'm not painting them in a bad light.
I'm not against it. I'm just like, could it create
Well,
a
it's-
problem because there's wage discretions on different jobs?
But that's something we would have to look at. I'm from the position where management will decide where staff will work. And if collective agreement needs to be changed, it'll have to be changed. We're the ones operating and managing, and that's what needs to take place. So whether or not who wants to cut grass, whatever to me is not irrelevant, but we're trying to increase the level of standard down there, not have to wait for snow removal, not have to wait to get the grass cut. And we would have to figure that out internally if it's a concern. I'm not talking about, cutting anybody's job. I'm talking about getting this done properly so we stop having complaints here. They don't phone public works when the grass isn't cut on time for a ball tournament. Come scream at the staff here.
No, I get that. I worry about these contracts. New
Okay.
contracts.
Councilor Glenn.
Oh, I just wanted some clarification. Are we talking about a lawnmower or are we talking like a small tractor with a mower deck and a PTO hitch or? Because I'm thinking a lawnmower, you're gonna need a trailer, are you not, to be able to take it down to Conway? Or if you're doing a long tractor with your snow hitch mowing deck, then you've got licensing to be able for it to be roadworthy.
Okay, so my understanding is one unit. There's no pictures. That picture would have been nice, right? But it's just one unit. So, there's a mower and we need to attach a snowboard front most time. But we don't have a picture or the type of equipment. I could be wrong and let's see if we can jump in.
Sorry, I do have a picture, but I don't have it on my computer. I can certainly send it.
Okay, yeah, because if we're looking at a lawnmower, you're looking at a trailer for hauling it. And I'm thinking just the regular lawnmowers, even the two-handled ones there. Some of them do not have enough power if you're thinking of putting a plow, if you're going to be pushing or anything like that. But if you're going for a lawn tractor or like one of the Kubotas or something like that, you can then change your attachments at the front depending on whether you're plowing or blowing or you're mowing deck. But then you can have that license so that it can drive down by itself instead of then having to assign a pickup and a trailer, which would
And
be
it,
more
it
cost.
is more along the lines of a Kubota.
There.
Don't we have some of those already? Public Works?
I can't speak to what we have and don't have. I'm speaking in terms of what we should have in terms of equipment. Now, and maybe the equipment down at Public Works is a larger mower, it's too big, it cuts too high, too low. I don't know the type of equipment that you have here. But you're usually cutting grass about the same time, maybe, and that's the issue. Maybe they're cutting grass and we're cutting grass. Well, that's the farm cutting grass. So I really can't answer that question in a here, Matt, thank you.
Then I will pose a question to our Director of Public Works. Do we have similar equipment at Public Works?
Yes.
We do. Okay. And is that equipment in the peak season of June, July, and August running 24/7?
I would, through the chair, I would say our limiting factor wouldn't be the equipment, it would be the summer students, which we have or don't have. So it would be difficult to meet the demand that the rec center needs with our current capacity.
Okay. But if they have the human capacity, then Public Works would have the equipment.
It's through the chair, it would be a balancing act using the different staff and the different equipment.
So they'd be fighting is what you're saying.
Correct.
The Public Works maintains Conway, or sorry, not Conway, Daunton Park and lots of other green spaces, maybe the campground, I'm not real sure. But there's there is a task there to maintain public grounds.
Correct.
And currently that includes Conway as well as the rec center lawn.
It was up until last year when they changed procedures. Conway got transferred to the rec center last summer.
In Parks and Rec. But it is back to Public Works.
But regardless under which header it falls, we have Public Works that has the capacity to upkeep public green spaces with a mower and snow removal equipment. And what we're now proposing to do is to add another piece of equipment that's going to sit there idle most of the time and require another person to operate it while we have that capacity already. And that's because we're not able to work closely together in order to have that balancing act.
Not so much capacity, it's when it's done.
I think they're bickering and there's no need for it. We already have the equipment.
I'm not sure who goes
Go,
first.
Councillor.
To the chair, well, I'm just curious as to whether this became an issue when it went to Parks and Rec. Or was it an issue when it was Public Works? Were they doing what needed to be done? Like, we don't have a scale here, right? I mean, it just turned over last year that Parks and Rec would look after parks, which obviously wasn't being done up to par, whether it was due to lack of equipment or lack of manpower. So we can't really sit here and say that Public Works wasn't doing it to capacity, can we?
No,
I don't
no,
remember hearing complaints before.
no, we don't have data. The staff can
Right.
tell you what they're thinking about. They're thinking about they can do their job. They can get the snow done at the front steps before the guys come out from the cruise. The priority is to do the streets, not the front entrance, not the back entrance, in terms of snow. And cutting grass, they know when the ball tournaments are on. Of course, that's not, because they know that fine. So what I've heard loud and clear, whatever the system is now, needs to be improved.
That's what
I can understand with being with scheduling problems, with Public Works doing things. I know over the years, I've been to the rec center, to different things that have been held, like going back to like May Days, where being there, the grass has been this long for the weekend, and then Monday morning, it's being cut. I've had the same thing down at the Conway Park with the soccer with the kids, that they're kicking the ball and the grass is this long. And by the Tuesday, it's all been cut after the fact, which I think it's no one's fault, just scheduling and people and machinery being available. But I have seen it lots, and I have heard lots of comments from users of both the rec center and Conway Park that the grass has not been cut when there has been a tournament or a function, but it's like 2 or 3 days later, suddenly the grass is cut. And so I think more scheduling and just workload as to sharing equipment and who got it first.
Okay. We spend $35,000 on a piece of equipment. How long is that gonna take to pay us back? By this? Will this equipment pay for itself in the long run? Or is it just gonna be a taxpayer's burden?
I think it would be a benefit to the taxpayers who are using the parks with their kids and or just picnics or anything else, having to walk through grass.
For me, if this was a broom or a snow shovel, I would say, yes, get your own. But we're talking about $35,000 piece of equipment. That means maintenance, fuel, operations that will need to be replaced in 6 years. So if it's a matter of, improving communications and staffing, that sort of stuff, in order to meet the service levels that are required from recreation, then I think, we need to invest a little bit of time and effort in order to come up with those agreements and understand what the needs are of the recreation department and when they have events and that sort of stuff, and put an effort in to make a schedule that then meets those needs. And understand that snow is a little bit more difficult because it's a little bit more urgent than mowing grass. Mowing grass and scheduling. I don't know, with a renewal of staff, that sort of stuff, I would hope that we would be able to resolve these balancing acts. So.
I think about the same thing. They just, I don't know, maybe Public Works is notified when there's gonna be a ball tournament. I'm just going from past experience when I was on the Miyazaki House board. And if we had an event and I called Public Works and said, we need the grass cut and the chairs brought over and the tables and whatnot, it got done. So I'm thinking from past experience on my own part, dealing with Public Works, and I'm kind of wondering if the recreation center that's handling the events isn't communicating the where's and when's. But that could be happening, it might not be happening, I don't know. That's something that should be discussed between the departments and the department heads.
And so I'm gonna bring it back to us again.
Right. Okay, we have one more. The outdoor electrical upgrade.
All right. That's, correct if I'm wrong, that's the request from the staff here on those events outside the front. It's just not enough plugins up there to host the events. Not enough power, not enough plugins. So that's what I've been told. Thank you. Close.
Yeah, sorry, through the chair. It's particularly this year, we've got the Little Fest coming up and the Apricot Fest coming up, and it is an absolute nightmare for rec center staff for those outdoor events. They have extension cords running here, there, and everywhere. If it rains, they're all praying they're not getting electrocuted. They're popping fuses, you know, every half an hour or so. So this would put, portable or, in some cases, stationary, electrical power, that would allow these outdoor events to,
Carry on.
thank you.
Sure. I would imagine that it is just a similar setup as what you would have in the campground, where you have, you know, outlets at the various stations, where you can plug in.
Yes, some of them though are portable, so, at least one of them, I'm sorry. So if it's, you know, the car show when it's out in the front lawn as opposed to, sorry, I don't do a lot of events here, so, but it would provide power to 3 sort of distinct areas.
Sure.
Would it benefit the farmer's market as well? Being,
I can't specifically, I can't answer that 100%. However, the purpose wouldn't be to help the farmers markets. There, unless
Because
they
we
want
need-
to pay for the power.
okay, yeah, because we have like the food truck that plugs in there now, and I didn't know if there was other vendors there who require power.
Yeah, the purpose would not be focused on farmers market. It would be focused on rec center, activities.
Very good. Any other questions about outdoor tower at the rec center?
Has this been costed out by 3 different outlets or one, or is this just a guess?
Class B.
No, it's not a plus or minus 100%. He did get, I believe, 2 quotes. I'm not positive, but we do still have to follow, regardless of what council approves as part of the budget, we still have to follow the proper procedure when we do actually go to purchase something.
Very good stuff. Then we'll come back to Councillor Reed's question.
Yeah, I forgot what it was.
We'll
You
get
read
ready
it,
to
nobody
know.
read. Why didn't you read it? Can't take up space.
I think we were about using the different reserves for different things.
No, I think that.
No, it was about the tax. Percentage of the tax rate?
Oh,
Right.
right.
Let me paraphrase.
Yes, please do.
So we currently have reserves, we have transfers in, and we have transfers out. I think the question is, if we want to balance the transfers in with the transfer out, what would be the impact on the tax increase required to fund that additional transfer in? In some cases, we've seen that we're sort of bleeding our reserves down. So in order to bring that up so that we put in as much as we take out, how much would that add to our operating budget to fund the reserves?
So through the chair, and just 2024.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So we're budgeting to put in about $2.9 million into our reserves. We're budgeting to take out about 4.1 million. So 2.9, 1.2 million. So that would be approximately, each 1% tax is $24,000 thereabouts. Am I?
1% tax?
1% tax is about $24,000.
50% tax. Would that come to? It's a 50% tax increase. So essentially, just to summarize, is that we're putting in 2.9 million into our reserves. We're taking 4.1 out.
Yeah.
Right? So our reserves of 12 million or whatever it is are decreasing with 10% next year. Right? So we less reserves, not more. Replace all the infrastructure, but less. So we're consuming our reserves under our leadership. In order to ensure that the reserves stay at that level, not increase to cover future things, but just increase, you have to add in 1.2 million. Or decide that we're not going to do some of these projects, which will then impact the service levels or the quality of the infrastructure. That's the balancing act that I think we're going to have to talk about. Are we satisfied with $2.9 million in? I'm happy to take 4.1 million out.
What's it doing for us in the bank?
What's that?
What's it doing for us in the bank? Are we a profit organization or a non-profit?
That's a good question. And, I mean, ultimately, what it does in the bank, two things. Generates interest that we spend on maintaining, replacing things. Right? So it creates money. That, and it is a reserve. So when you have a $10 million replacement, at least there is money that, because at some point we need to replace the range or something, assuming you take it. So then that year you need much more.
Borrow money too.
We can borrow money to get that started.
Myself personally, we've been stripping along for a long time, and we have some money in the bank. Spend with. And that's what we're
I
doing.
like to look at it like we're not taking 4.1 million out, we're depleting it by 1.2. Is that not
Sure.
right?
That's simple.
Like, it just makes more sense in my head.
And we've been saving to do this.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's just like retiring. You save a bunch of money and you die. You
And
don't
then
make
you
nothing
die, and your
again.
kids can have a good time.
Yeah, yeah.
With the exception there is that your life has a
Limit.
finite life, while hopefully we can leave the town in a better state than we found it.
Spend some money.
The infrastructure will need to be there for our children and grandchildren to try that. So in that sense, spending all the money before we pass away.
But the
Well-
flip side is,
No,
the flip side is gonna cost you more.
Next year it's gonna cost more. For sure.
You're talking more next year, 5 years from now, so it's not gonna be any cheaper, so you're facing a very common dilemma, right? How much you want to use your reserves, how much you should borrow, so there should be a game plan. I mean, we look at all your assets. We're gonna use this much this year from reserve or from taxes, and how much you want to use from your borrowing money. And figure out what your big projects are going to be. Some are not even listed on there, right? You might need a new arena, you might need this and that. You might need a new district office. So how are you gonna fund these things, right? I mean, eventually we'll have to face these harsh realities, right? So they're from reserve, they're from your taxes, and you're gonna like to have to borrow money at some point. I worked in some communities, we all had debt except for one. And that's just the way, otherwise your stuff's just gonna get older and older. It's not gonna get any newer. It's gonna get older. So you come up with a formula that works for you through the CFO. And what does that look like? Yes. You're right. Our reserves are important and it makes interest. But in the meantime, you got inflation. It's just kicking us. Right? So it's not easy. It's complicated. But I'm thinking you're looking at a point where you may have to consider borrowing money or certain things won't get done. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Do you know
be.
what the interest rates are on MFA or?
Off the top of my head, I'm sorry, no, I don't.
No, that's fine.
That's perfect. That we don't know.
But we do know the Bank of
No, it
Canada held
is
this,
not.
the rates at 5%.
Through the chair, I think it's important to, and that's where, we have about $99 million worth of assets that we have to replace. That isn't tomorrow, but we do have to know that these things are coming and plan for them. 99 million compared to you know, we've got 20 million in our reserves and surplus right now. That sounds decent. I mean, we've got 20% of the money. But next year, that 20% is only maybe 17%.
Yeah.
Because money's not worth as much.
Just to come back to the numbers, the 2.9 million, how much of that is coming from this year's tax revenue?
We put in from taxation about 565,500, I believe it is.
Okay, 500,000. Is that 500,000?
Yeah.
The remainder of the 2.9 million is carryover from last year.
No, a lot of it is interest. The gas tax, which is not taxation.
So the 2023 project carry forward, budget remaining.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I was not talking about what you were talking about.
So this is a different number.
I just wasn't talking about the same thing.
I don't know. Okay, again,
Well, can we regroup?
so 500 of the 2.9 million going into the reserves, 500,000 is coming from this year's tax revenue. Here's the rest coming.
A good portion of it is interest, investment income, about $800,000 we're budgeting.
Okay,
Oh, and sorry, and there is also our anticipated annual surplus of the 300 and.
so there's 500 in tax revenue, 700 in interest, so there's 1.2. We still have 1.7 to cover.
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me for that,
But I think my point is that from the taxes that are being paid, we're only saving $500,000.
about 6. It is.
Putting $600,000 away, while we have $99 million in infrastructure that needs to be replaced in 30 years, so about $3 million every year. That means that $2.5 million has to come from somewhere else, and it can't come from reserves until the end of the day, because at some point this can be empty, right? So that's.
But
And
it's
that's-
been here for a long time.
Make more interest on the savings.
Yeah, I don't see interest rates going up any further, but interest rates are quite healthy right now, and I'm very happy that we're gonna generate $700,000 in interest, because that's pretty much. That's,
But you gotta think long-term, Counselor. I see the dilemma, right? It's long-term. Some communities, for example, don't just borrow debt for the heavy iron, for example.
sorry for this.
But for heavy equipment,
Good.
fire trucks, graders, dozers, whatever, street sweepers. So that's their philosophy in terms of, this is what we're gonna borrow money for. Other communities borrow money for debt for their facilities. So I'm not sure if you have that plan here or not. I should have asked that before, but that's how you kind of move forward. But you gotta think this place will be here another 100 years. And we'll all be pushing daisies, right? Some of us sooner. But, so you gotta think long-term in terms of come up with a game plan. It is sophisticated in terms of how much, and you're asking the right questions, by the way. So how much we're gonna use from here, and how much we wanna borrow. And you have the limits in borrowing, and you have all these things, in every product. So how do you wanna do your sidewalks? How do you wanna do your next rec center? How are you gonna pay for your next fire truck?
So borrowing money is just a temporary thing.
That's fair. Municipalities have debt.
What's that?
Municipalities have debt for the most part.
Right, you still have to pay it back, so,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Because you don't pay it
That
back.
taxpayer money doesn't go to capital reserves, but it just goes to interest and principal.
Yeah.
Right, so, and there is a leakage there because you're paying interest.
Yes.
So you're not getting as much bang for your dollar as when you save it up, because then you get not just 100% of the principal, but actually even more.
I follow that, but you're saving a while the other things are crumbling.
You're sorry?
You're saving money while things are crumbling,
Well,
right? I mean, you should have won two trucks last year.
today is worth this.
But that's the legacy that's been left to us. Right?
Yeah, and you're
We
gonna
can't
leave
change
one,
anything by
and the
that.
next one's gonna leave one, the next one will be here. But this will still be here in 100 years.
Does that answer your question?
My brain's still not working.
All right.
It does. I just, don't know, I hate raising taxes, but I know it has to be done, and I just wish that we could come to a. I always feel like we're doing it backwards. Like, I'd like to see it with X number of dollars of taxes on there in a percentage, so I know it's 4%. I get that part, but, you know.
Like, you wanna see it
The
visually,
utilities,
Counselor?
yeah, I think so.
You wanna see it on the wall, what Counselor Drew was saying, yeah, this and this and this. You know, some of us are visual, you know.
Yeah.
This paper's like it's a little dry after a while for some of us. Is that what you're asking? So typically, sorry,
Well,
I
I'm
think-
thinking like, okay, we raise the taxes, the
Yeah.
utilities raise, right? And that's just our portion of the tax bill. Then the SLRG raises theirs and the school board raises theirs, and, you know, how much can the poor little homeowner take? You know, without going to a proctologist or something.
But at the beginning of the process, did you ask us, and we didn't like, you know, and then I don't recall, did you ask us to come back with a 5% increase or an 8 or?
No, I think we used, I think in previous years, we had it 2 or 3 different ways, did we not? Like with this increase and that increase, and I could be wrong. I could be.
It was for the chair, the original budget presentation that comes to council is whatever inflation was.
Okay,
Unless that puts us in a deficit. I can't bring that to council. So 90% of the time, the first budget that comes to council is whatever inflation was, whether it's 2%, 4%, and then council decides where to go from there. If you want me to come back to you with, you know, what would 5% look like, what would 7% look like, I can absolutely do that. Council, tell me to do that, and I'd be happy.
I think we should come up with something that we're comfortable with as far as an increase, and then see what's left. I hate
Well-
to start chopping projects because they're all good projects and they all need to be done sooner than later.
Sooner's cheaper, later's more expensive.
Well, I get that, but I don't want to go out there and ask for 26% increase in taxes either. I still want to
But
live
I
up
think
there.
there's two things that we need to consider. First, today we focused on projects, which are capital projects that are funded through reserves. And in a lot of ways, the money's there. We need to maintain our infrastructure, so we need to spend the money. And whether it's 3 million or 4 million or 2 million, or, I mean, it's just, you know, it's up to the professionals to indicate this is what needs to be replaced. Sorry. The big bottom line question, sorry, is how much are we adding to reserves? How much are we taking?
I'm just having a throat clearing moment. Do we, with the percentage that automatically put on the utilities, right, which is that percentage?
Inflation.
Okay. That the reserve funds for water, sewer, what else is taken out of that? Basically, because you're cutting this for that utility, so I'm assuming you would put that part of the taxation money into that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, we can only put water money in water, we can only put
Yes.
sewer money in sewer.
Capital projects is one. Then we have our operating budget, which is the other part. The operating is mainly taxes plus other sources. There is a current assumption that there's 4% tax increase in order to get the revenue to somewhere. But the way that currently the budget works is that it's been balanced by taking money out of the surplus. Okay? So the 4% is, it's not the sort of the thing that balanced the budget. No, we basically took all of our existing expenses, added inflation, added full capacity. Then we subtracted the revenue, tax revenue, that was increased at 4%, and whatever was left is now coming out of reserves. So both on the capital side, we're seeing that our reserves are dwindling, as well as on the operating side, we have a deficit as well, that we basically are funding that through surplus. And, so just on the operating side, if we want to balance a budget, you're talking about 21% tax increase. If you want to balance the capital projects, we're talking about 50% tax increase. Yes, we'll be raising taxes.
I know we'll be raising taxes, and I keep in the back of my mind too, I know some of this, there'll be grants towards it and whatnot. So that final figure will come out to 1.2 million.
This like last year when we done our budget, we budgeted, I think it was balanced, and how much did we wind up putting into our reserves last year?
So we budgeted for a $368,000 surplus and we ended up with a 700 and something.
That's because we didn't spend the money that
Correct.
we're supposed to spend on providing services to the public.
So now we can make up for it.
But that means that we can make up for it in 2024, but then in 25, you have to then balance the budget.
So you gotta
If
adjust.
we're gonna hire a whole bunch of new people, we'll be there in 25 as well. Right? Then you'll either have to continue to take out surplus of your surplus out of your savings account, or you're gonna have to raise taxes next year.
Or cut back on services.
Or take the 8 people that we just hired and say, thank you very much.
You're
I get
hired again.
Well, we
And
already know.
through the chair, that's not hiring 8 people. That is the new positions being a full-time deputy fire chief and a part-time emergency management coach. The rest of that 8 FTE is a
Bringing
full
us back.
year of employees that were not here a full year last year. A full year's CAO. So it's not 8 new people.
That's already in the budget.
But regardless, if we look at next year with this budget, then either we're gonna have to take money out of our savings account, or at some point, we're gonna have to raise taxes. Because right now, we're spending this, we're only collecting this.
Last year, we collected this and spent this. And we balanced.
If I could, sorry, just,
No, I was gonna say, I might not shed light, but municipalities really do well when they do things incrementally. So you don't have an up year or down, right? I mean, it happens, so staff come and go, they don't have enough money. So I was thinking, I've learned that town council just do things incrementally, right? So whether you borrow a little bit of money, use a little bit of money, because when we have these swings, are very difficult to come back. For a variety of reasons, whether it's inflation, interest rates, or do things incrementally. But I've seen places where they've stopped spending money, and yes, and there is 26% tax increase because the streets are falling apart. The roof caved in at the rec center, et cetera, et cetera.
Any other?
Oh, sorry, I think I cut off the schedule.
that's okay. It's just gonna, I'm just gonna try to share this on my screen. So we can upgrade something.
Always.
We're always operating.
Mine waits till I'm on the Zoom meeting and goes, oh, you need to upgrade.
I'm not gonna be able to share the whole page. I don't know if you guys all have your big report, the first report. Yes. And what it's not here, this is the case. Page 54. That's just what I'm, so,
That one?
yes, yes. And I'm not saying that this would have been, you know, the magic,
Bullet?
not bullet, the better one. What would be good,
Pill.
that works, the golden pill or whatever, that would have solved all of our problems. But I did put this in the budget report just to kind of make a point that keeping a consistent tax increase over time actually adds up to more in the end. So I had, on the previous page, I had showed, you know, the annual tax increases that the district had. And then I said, okay, if we smooth that out, and I just chose that word because it sounded good to me, so that it was the same tax increase over every year instead of up, down, here, there, and everywhere, it would have worked out to just over 3% each year over that 10-year period. Would have started with the same amount of money and ended with the same amount of money. And I know Councillor McNary is gonna give me a look when I say this, but in the meantime, we actually made more money because it's cumulative over the years. If we had gone instead of that 3%, that would have kept us at the same. If we had gone to 5% over those 10 years, in the end, the district right now would have $2.8 million more than we do right now. So again, I'm not saying 5% was the, you know, the magic pill that would have saved everything, but just to show that decisions today accumulate over time, because any tax increases, the actual increase that you get from it depends on how much you increased it before. It's cumulative. So just something to think about. I don't have, you know, it's not the solution to everything, but it is something to think of, and that's why I thought it was important to have in the report. And I think it kind of goes a bit with the discussion tonight, in that you have to plan more long-term than just this year or just this council term, or, you know, yes, we're all gonna be pushing up daisies in 100 years, but hopefully the community is still here, and hopefully, you know, all of the infrastructure and amenities that we have are still here and improved.
So this is probably a big ask. Feel free to say no, because I know you can say no. Can you do a forecast like that from right now forward? To give us a rough idea of where we should go here with percentages, like to get ourselves back on, obviously we fell off the tracks and we need to get back on.
Not very well.
Okay,
You would have to have a crystal ball.
okay.
I can give you this because I know already what happens. I could probably come up with something that's around the general idea, but I wouldn't count on it being accurate. Not accurate, but
We're taking it to the bank, right?
yeah.
Because
Well, no,
it's inflation, it's interest rates, and God knows what else.
I get that. I'm just kind of, I am that visual person, right? And I
So,
would like to see it like that way, like if we have to raise it 9% every year for the next 10 years, you know, where's that gonna put us? Or,
I can certainly come up with something. It's just not going to, in 10 years down the road, you may find out that I was completely wrong because, you know, interest rates tanked and
I'll model for Rob.
inflation went.
class D estimate.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Lost my train of thought. Okay. If
you're saying a revenue with a constant 5% increase, what did we do last year? 5.7?
5.65, I believe it was.
Okay. So can you come back to us? What did you say percentage? What's $25,000 in our pocket?
1% works out to about 24,000, yes.
Somebody wants a smooth.
It's a long ways from $2 million now.
I think the, Councillor Reeves' request for a simplified, long-term outlook that, looks ahead, it's, I don't know, like a number of years, longer than this 5-year thing. So that you can see, okay, well, when are the reserves going to be depleted? While we assume that we still need to spend $3 million on capital, right? Because that's $99 million divided by 30 years is 3 million. So you use that as a proxy, won't be exact, but then it would be interesting to sort of see, okay, well, where does that put us? At some point, the reserves are going to be empty. So how? And then you can ask yourself, how much would we need to increase our taxes every year in order to either ensure that we don't end up being broke 30 years from now? But I think that would be a good, like I said, Class D estimate. But if you were to take today's budget and basically forget about inflation, ignore inflation and that sort of stuff. We just take that and plot it out for the next 10, 15 years. Where does it put us?
Yeah, 'cause 5 years just isn't far enough out for you.
Yeah.
You gotta think long-term.
Yeah.
So, the heavy metal, office, whatever it is. And you put a works building, at some point, they're gonna come up. So you need to start either putting more money away, raising taxes or borrowing money. It's really not magic, but it's difficult, but it's not magic.
Is that a lot of extra work for you, Joni, or is it doable where you just get all excited?
You do it on your holidays.
No, it's gotta be done long after that.
And
That was a joke.
I
it's
don't wanna
not
add
gonna
stuff to
be,
this
it's not
corner.
gonna be easy. I can hopefully come up with something quick and dirty for you, but it won't be by tomorrow.
No,
But by the next budget meeting, which I think is next Tuesday or something, hopefully we'll have something.
do you,
Come tomorrow.
through the chair again. It's okay, you
I
just
won't
just
have
have
it
your
by
own
tomorrow.
conference. Do you have a suggestion as to how to get out of this mess that we previously have created? Like not in general, but like previous life.
I
don't want to put it on the spot.
No,
It's-
but you are, though.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to interject. That's really unfair for any staff to answer that, and I know she probably wants to. I'm gonna say, don't go there. Council decides the level of service. We'll bring back to you 5%, 6%, that's easy done. But you folks have to decide your long-term plan, 20 years, how are you gonna pay for it? Sure, it changes every 5 years. You folks have to decide the interest. We'll suggest, but you're putting this individual in a really awkward position. I know you don't mean to,
No,
but it's very awkward.
but I would like to see it come back with more than 4%
Right,
on there and what it would look like in the individual's tax.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Quick comment, through the chair, investing in infrastructure is an investment in the community, which brings more businesses, which brings more people, which brings more taxes, which pays for that infrastructure.
Okay. Sorry, Councilor Flynn.
There was
She doesn't want me looking at it anymore.
Just going back to Joni's graphs there, I know when I read through this the first time, your smooth concept really did hit a note there as to, and especially keeping it something the same every year. And it also benefits the taxpayers as well, because they have more of an idea, like it's not going to be each year, oh God, is it going to be 2% or are they jumping it up to 12%? And I liked that concept.
That's it.
For everybody, for ourselves and also the
Yeah, I do too.
taxpayers.
I'd like to know.
Yeah.
Any other remaining questions? Okay. Well, we've discussed a lot of different things. Reviewed a lot of capital projects and that sort of stuff. We haven't really given any direction, but we will do that tomorrow or Monday or Tuesday or whatever day we will, at some point, we'll give that direction in terms of where council wants to move the budget.
If I could just, I'm not sure that there would be a benefit to having a meeting tomorrow night. If council wants, this kind of a little more information on, different tax rates and kind of a future year forecast, and, if that's gonna help with the decision on particularly the operating budget, then I'm not sure that there's a benefit to having a meeting tomorrow night. It might make more sense to wait until, I think, is it Tuesday? Which will give me a bit of time to prepare something for you as well.
Councilor Flynn.
Through the chair, I'm good with that, but would we be scheduling an extra meeting on top of that? Because that now means that we've dropped 2 meetings for making decisions here. So would Tuesday be our final kick at the can?
We can always add another meeting should council.
March, don't we, or in Monday anyways?
We've got Tuesday and Thursday next week.
Monday and Tuesday.
Monday and Tuesday.
Well, no, it was originally spoken about Monday, but it wasn't. Tuesday was the issue.
Monday and Tuesday might come.
I do.
I do too, actually.
I only have Monday.
Okay. So Monday,
Monday and Tuesday.
So Monday is committee to hold for economic development and
can't use that one,
grants.
can't use that.
Be the Tuesday.
Okay, so
So it'll be
on Monday,
Tuesday.
we're meeting to discuss economic development and grants. And that is in part also a budget discussion, because then we'll be talking about the Miyazaki House and funding and that sort of stuff.
The grant allocations, yeah.
Okay. And then on Tuesday, we have committee of the whole budget. Okay.
And then we could schedule another one. If we count it tomorrow, another one could be added.
I wouldn't be able to do Wednesday because I'm doing the Indigenous court thing for them.
None of us would be able to do Wednesday, that's it, but we've got 3 meetings this week, I'm not going to go on 3 meetings to council next week.
Well, I don't have Monday down, so.
Well, I should have been used tomorrow off.
Okay.
So we're not doing
but-
tomorrow then, take it out.
That's what I'm asking council.
This is not gonna give us any benefit. Why have me?
Don't need the delegation come and speak.
That's on Monday.
I personally would like to wait to see the percentages and what it looks like. That's just because.
That's a very good idea.
Meet on the 12th for maybe the whole of the budget and then the 18th.
The 12th and the
18th,
18th.
the Monday follow.
No,
19th,
we have a meeting on that.
Yeah, we got a council meeting
The
at
council
9.
meeting on the 19th.
20th,
24.
No, not the 24th to the 25th. Will not be here.
The 20th.
Okay, all right, so then I'll, I think we have our schedules all lined up now. I'll go back to our agenda. So that was 5.1. We're moving along. Can I have a motion that the March 6th, 2024 committee of the whole, oh, actually, no, I will, we have progress. I'm not sure it's on the agenda, but I'm going to allow for public input. Yes. I have not forgotten.
Let's just misplaced for a little bit.
If there is public input, I invite you to
Step up.
step up.
Thank you. Hi, thanks so much. This was a great discussion.
Introduce you.
Yes, sorry. So I'm here for the second time, I should just move on. I'm gonna make one quick remark in my capacity as a private individual, not in my capacity as the executive director of the chamber, because I've not talked to my board about this. My board is very involved business owners, so they definitely want to know what I talked to the council about. But I just wanted a quick note. It was a great discussion today. And hearing all these ideas and hearing the problems, and I was there during the asset management discussions, well, it raises a lot of concerns, obviously, obvious concerns, no question. And a lot of challenges that I think are faced across the province, but also, are unique to Lillooet. The one element that I haven't heard much from today, and maybe it will come into the future, is this idea that you can save yourself out of a problem, absolutely. You can also save yourself to death, or you can grow yourself out of a problem. One of the things that the asset management plan did not do, and maybe someone can correct me on that, but it made a number of assumptions. One of the assumptions it made is that there will not be population growth in Lillooet over the next 30 years. That's ridiculous. It also did not include inflation, which on the opposite side of that is also ridiculous. So I think in this discussion of like, how is a 30-year problem going to be solved or a 99-year problem going to be solved, one of the important discussions has to also be, how can this community be made attractive so that more people move here and the total tax base rises, right? That's how Kelowna gets itself out of these problems. That's how Toronto gets itself out of these problems. And I think, to put that into context, I'm going to totally make this up, and Johnny can yell at me if the numbers are wrong. But I'm going to assume the average business in this town pays something like $12,000 a year in property taxes, because they pay a pretty significant share. 2 of those are 1% tax increase. So we get 2 new businesses in this town. We've now made up a lot of tax money. The average property owner, I use myself as an example, pays something like $1,500 in property taxes a year. You get 10 of those per year, you've now raised your tax base significantly. So raising taxes, may or may not be a good idea, and that's up to council to decide. But I think there needs to be a good discussion on how can this community grow itself out of the problem by investing in itself so that more people move here, more businesses open up shop. Every event that's put on in this community might make someone say, hey, let me buy a house in this community that's worth nothing compared to the lower mainland or wherever else, right? Every new business that says, hey, Lillooet's tax base is actually pretty low compared to someone like Kelowna, wineries or something, it might just be that 1% that makes them make the move. But I think there's an important discussion around how can funds be used to invest in the community so that growth happens. And I know there was one comment about it today, but I think it's an important part of the discussion as well. So,
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. Then I'll move on to 10.1. I can have a motion that the March 6th, 2024 committee of the whole meeting
Be adjourned.
be adjourned. Yeah. at 7:02. Moved by Councilor McNary. And seconded by Councilor Platt. Thank you. All in favor? Okay.